this is your story, and I just wanted to see if you could provide us a little bit of background. So I wanted to come back to you, and I'm just wondering if you could tell us a bit about what your experience was as a child and then growing up with this dual genetic ancestry, being half European and half Native American. How did that, was there any inner battle? Were you fine with it? How did this play out inside one person?
I didn't have an inner battle. I was always pretty clear about who I was. I am equally Polish, American, and Cherokee. I have recipes and family stories from both sides. That's a privilege. Not everybody has those. One doesn't make me less the other. So no, I didn't have any problem with that. I go back to Oklahoma and fish in silence with my grandfather. Play checkers with my great grandmother and toss the ball for catch with her dog and hear stories from her, and then I come back here and hear my grandfather's stories about the Tatra Mountains and Shamash and Zakopane and the places that were his as well. I don't have a problem with it. I think these problems are often constructed. And I think the idea of that construction is in order to make people doubt themselves, make people uneasy with their family knowledge. My father, who is my native parent, never went to proper university. Joined the Navy to get out of northeastern Oklahoma because, family stuff. And then met my mother here in San Francisco, and like, as traditional for good Cherokee boys, he settled down near my mother's family, which is very traditional. And did a few other jobs, and then ended up getting hired in Silicon Valley as a telecommunications engineer. So my father ended up retiring as a scientist from IBM, having never attended a university. He's just a genius in a world where that's an overused word. But he's like a math goober, as was his father, who was a gunnery sergeant during World War II and could do trig in his head. So I was never tech phobic, or I never had anxiety about any of those things because they just were part of the family. And I've always found it interesting because I do fancy math. I've done a lot of fancy math over the years, and people are always like, that just seems strange, you're Native American. I'm like, I'm mixed, and I'm fine with being mixed. But also, all of the math stuff comes from the Cherokee side of the family. There's a Jack Kilpatrick, who is one of our historical writers in the tribe, in the nation, said that at one point that the Cherokee fascination for numbers is something that should have long ago attracted the attention of competent psychiatric care, or whatever. And it's just true. We're sort of that way. So I've never really had a dichotomy about it. I'm not entirely sure both sides of the family always understood one another, which is, if there was any tension, that's where it came from. But, my great-grandmother was alive until I was in high school. I was ending high school when she passed. And so I had access to information if I wanted it. I didn't have to go hunt for it. I didn't have to go dig up my family like so many people have to. My family stayed connected to the nation, stayed connected tribally and culturally. So I didn't have a sense of loss of what everybody else, any other Cherokee people had. Which doesn't mean I don't have rage about some of what's been had us put through, by the colonization and relocation. But I'm in it with the rest of the group. And a lot of people who are raised elsewhere outside of the nation do feel a sense of loss that I never felt it because I always had access. So there's that. Also, excuse me, there may well be more Cherokees in Northern California than there are in parts of Oklahoma. You know, it's a huge diaspora, and the diasporic community had not been really um, together, unified, until the at-large community project started with the Cherokee Nation. They're doing, it's slow work, but it's a great start on getting people together to learn not just the wild things that you can find out by reading about it, but also by hanging out with people who have lived experience of our communities.
So here in Northern California, are you in a community with other diasporic Cherokee?
I am. I've just recently been put on the board for the Cherokee Society of the Greater Bay Area, which I had kind of avoided for a while because it's a lot, right? And I have all kinds of work to do, you know. I wasn't looking for a new hobby at the same time. It's really important because, for example, we had a potluck for a Cherokee artist who was working with the Museum of Modern Art here in San Francisco, and that's important too. So every year, the nation comes out. Somebody from the nation comes out, and they say some things, and we have a picnic. We eat together, and we hang out, and we do things like play stick game and traditional things. And that's important, but it's also important to do it at a one-on-one, person-by-person basis. So, that was my first act as a board member. I was like, we are having a potluck for this guy. He's here doing this interesting artwork. We're having a potluck for him. And everybody went, ooh, should we do that? It's like, the answer is yes, and we are doing it. Come over and bring a dish. And it was great, and he had a great time, and we all had a great time. It was really good for everybody. So just, for us at this point, there's it's a many-fold problem puzzle. So we have to maintain the communities that we have. We have to educate the at-large citizens, and we have to make joy out of that as well. It's not all misery. The biggest thing that I ever say to young Native people these days when I get invited to go talk somewhere, to read my poetry, and then inevitably younger Native people show up and want to talk to me, want to be seen. They want to be seen, and I like to tell them, and it feels like the most important thing, that we're not less than our ancestors, and it's important to know that.
Is there a feeling that you are less than your ancestors?
Well, I think it's part of the whole disenfranchisement plan that, once upon a time you guys did these things and you had a language and this big culture, but now you're all fragmented and shattered, and really you should just blend in, Or, if I don't speak my language, does that make me less Cherokee? No, it's probably good to learn it, So yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot to be done to make people to have people feeling less estranged from themselves, really at sea, all alone, and that's both in the sort of longer standing communities and in cities. It's true both, and it's the work we have to do, and we're certainly not going to get help from the United States government on that, nor can they. They don't really know what's necessary. It'd be great if they could get out of our way, but that doesn't look likely for the next few years at least. So we got to take this on, for the health of our communities.